Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to our Bhagavad Gita class. Let's start with the prayers. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsyam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarinim Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhuvya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurattishe Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Nilachala Nivasaya Nityaya Paramatmane Balabhadra Subhadravhyam Jagannathaya Te Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we have completed the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. In the first 6 chapters, Krishna primarily dealt Arjuna's different questions regarding whether to fight or not to fight. In the beginning chapter, the first chapter, Arjuna gave a few logic or argument of not fighting, and Krishna defeated those in chapter 2 and chapter 3. And then Krishna spoke about Karma Yoga, Niskam Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, also Ashtanga Yoga, Karma Sannyas Yoga. All these different kinds of yogas are enumerated in the first 6 chapters. At the end of chapter 6, Krishna told Arjuna, when in the chapter 6, Krishna was describing Ashtanga Yoga, the process of Ashtanga Yoga, because this Ashtanga Yoga is very difficult, especially for us, the Kali Yuga people. So Arjuna did not accept this process. So then Krishna told, I have a better option. So Krishna told, I have a better option, that is Bhakti Yoga. So in Bhakti Yoga is actually easier to perform because the Supreme Lord will help you. If you surrender unto the Supreme Lord takes care. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma suchah. So then Krishna, throughout the first 6 chapters also, Krishna is prescribing Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. So Karma and Bhakti is very similar. We have discussed that Karma Yoga is the first step towards Bhakti Yoga. In Karma Yoga, I have the choice of doing whatever I like, and I have to offer the fruits to Krishna. In Bhakti Yoga, a devotee does not do anything with his own choice. The devotee does everything for Krishna's pleasure. Whatever the Guru, the Vaishnavas, and Hari, the Supreme Lord, dictates, the devotee performs that. He has no ulterior consideration. The devotee has devotee is not interested in personal benefit. He only acts for the benefit of Krishna. So now, from chapter 7 onwards, Krishna started explaining the process of devotional service or Bhakti Yoga, which is the main section of Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita, in the first 6 chapters, we have Karma Yoga primarily. Then the middle 6 chapters, we have Bhakti Yoga. And the last 6 chapters is Jnana Yoga. So we are in the Bhakti Yoga section, chapter 8. In chapter 7, Krishna described different energies, the external energy or the material energy of Krishna, and the spiritual energy of Krishna. And also, Krishna showed in chapter 7 that how a living entity can see Krishna everywhere. In a neophyte stage, it is difficult to see Krishna everywhere. Only the pure devotees can see, but Krishna in the chapter 7 gave different descriptions by which even a neophyte can see Krishna everywhere. Then Krishna analyzed, although I am everywhere, why people cannot see me? Because there is a curtain of Maya made of the three modes of material nature. Therefore, people cannot see. How to get rid of that curtain? If you surrender unto Krishna, Daivihi esha gunamai mama maya durattaya mame vaya prapadyante mayametam tarantite. If you surrender unto Krishna, that curtain will go away, and we can clearly see the truth. The curtain of Maya is covering the actual truth, and therefore we are in ignorance. But once we surrender unto Krishna, that curtain will go away. So like this, Krishna is describing in chapter 7, and then Krishna also described about the different people who surrender unto Krishna and different people who do not surrender unto Krishna, who partially surrender unto Krishna by taking shelter of the demigods, who surrender unto Krishna by thinking Krishna is impersonal. Like this, Krishna did an analysis of Bhakti Yoga, the process of Bhakti Yoga, taking shelter of Krishna, and the persons who take shelter and who do not shelter, who take partially shelter, like that. At the end of chapter 7, Krishna discussed something in the last two verses that Arjuna could not understand. And that will start chapter 8. Arjuna will ask questions regarding these two verses. Chapter 7, verse number 29 says, Jara marana mokshaya mama shritya jatantite te brahma tad vidu Krishna madhyattam karma cha akhilam. So Arjuna will ask question about Brahma and Adhyatma and Karma. These three questions are coming from 7.29 and 7.30 also. Arjuna will ask questions. Sadhi bhutadi daivam mam sadhi yagyam cha jevidu prayana kale apichamam te vidur yukta chetasha. So Arjuna will ask, what is Adibhuta? What is Adhidaiva? What is Adhiyagya? And how can one remember Krishna at the time of death? How does this Adhiyagya stay in the body of the living entity? So these are the different questions of Arjuna. So let's see. The first verse of the 8th chapter. Arjuna Uvacha. Arjuna told, Kim tradbambha kim adhyatmam kim karma purushottama adibhutam cha kim proktam adhidaivam kimuchyate. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, the Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? The Brahman, Adhyatma, and Karma. What is the material manifestation? That is the Adhibhutam. Adhibhuta means actually material manifestation. So what is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Demigods means Adhidaiva. Please explain this to me. So Arjuna is asking all these different questions. Okay. So the Supreme Lord will answer. The questions are not complete. Arjuna will ask further questions. So this is the first verse of this chapter, and Arjuna has asked, Kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam kim karma purushottama adhibhutam cha kim proktam adhidevam kim uchyate. So 5 questions. Brahma, adhyatma, karma, adhibhuta, adhideva. And in the second verse, Arjuna is telling, Adhiyagya katham kotra deheshmin madhusudana prayanakale cha katham yeyoshi niyatatma vim. Who is the Lord of sacrifice and how does he live in the body? Lord of sacrifice means Adhiyagya. So we have this benefit that when Prabhupada translates, we know what is the meaning. But Arjuna did not know the meaning of Adhiyagya. So who is the Lord of sacrifice and how does he live in the body, O Madhusudana? So this is the question regarding Adhiyagya and the location of Adhiyagya. And the last question, so we had 5 questions in the verse 1. Now who is the Lord of sacrifice? This is the 6th question. How does he live in the body? 7th question. And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? This is the 8th question. So chapter 8 starts with these 8 questions of Arjuna. Now let's see what the Supreme Lord answers. Verse number 3. Shri Bhagavanuvacham Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavo Dhyatmam Uchyate Bhuta Bhavo Bhava Karo Visarga Karma Sangita. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman. So we have to carefully understand each of these answers. So first question of Arjuna was, what is Brahman? So Brahman is basically spirit soul. We all are Brahman. Therefore, in the Vedas comes one phrase called Aham Brahmasmi. I am spiritual Brahman. I am not this body. This body is material. At the time of death, we can see that the body is still there, but the soul leaves the body. So the soul is the actual component. I am not this body, I am soul. And that soul is a spiritual component. And that spiritual component is called Brahman. And that spiritual component, the soul, is indestructible, transcendental, living entity. That is the meaning of Brahman. The next question is, what is Adhyatma? The eternal nature of Brahman or eternal nature of the living entity is called Adhyatma. What is the eternal nature? The eternal nature of the living entity is, the living entity is a servant of the Supreme Lord, Krishna. Krishnera Nityadas. Jibera Swarupa Hai Krishnera Nityadas. So the eternal position or eternal nature of the spirit soul, which is Adhyatma, is serving Krishna's lotus feet. So therefore we can see that serving tendency is there. Even after coming to this material world, our consciousness is contaminated. Therefore we are suffering. But even in this stage, we have that serving propensity. We want to serve someone. Serve means selflessly love someone. We want to love, we want to serve, and we want to become love. We want that people also should behave in the same way. So this is the Adhyatma. Even the most degraded criminal is serving his own family. He loves his own family. So in this material world, that loving propensity and serving propensity is always there with the soul. And that property is inseparable. Just like the sweetness cannot be separated from the sugar. So that is the property of the sugar. So similarly, this serving propensity or loving propensity cannot be separated from the soul. That is the eternal dharma or property of the soul. So that eternal nature is called Adhyatma, to serve the lotus feet of Krishna. But due to ignorance, we do not know whom to serve. We are serving some mere mortals of this world, and then we are cheated, and then we are dissatisfied. So once we are enlightened, we will know that the only object of service is Krishna, and then we will become happy. So that is the main teaching of this Gita, Bhagavatam, and all the scriptures. So Adhyatma or the self is the eternal nature of Brahman. Action pertaining, now what is karma? The third question. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma or fruitive activities. Whenever we do something, it can be classified in three different categories: karma, akarma, or vikarma. We also studied about this concept in chapter 4. So whenever we do something, either that is pious activity or sinful activity or devotional service. If it is pious activity, our pious credit will grow. If it is a sinful activity, our sinful credit will grow. Due to pious credit, we will get happiness. Due to sinful credit, we will get sufferings. There is another kind of work that is called akarma or devotional service. Anything done for the sake of the Supreme Lord or the Vaishnavas or devotees. So service to Krishna or devotees is called akarma. And this akarma is liberating. Whenever we do akarma, we free ourselves from this material world and we prepare ourselves to go to the eternal abode of the Supreme Lord, Vaikuntha or Golok Vrindavan. And in Vaikuntha and Golok Vrindavan, there is infinite bliss. So by doing karma, that means pious activity, we get material pleasure. By doing vikarma or sinful activities, we get material sufferings. But by doing akarma or devotional service, we get transcendental bliss. So now this akarma or devotional service cuts the bondage of karma. But whenever we do karma or vikarma, that means pious activity or sinful activity, we bound ourselves by more karma. So this is called law of karma. The whole karmic reactions, pious activities, sinful activities, this is called the whole law of karma. That is the meaning of karma. So we discussed about Brahma, Adhyatma, Karma. Now the Supreme Lord will answer further questions of Arjuna. What is Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva and Adhiyagya? Adhibhutam ksharo bhava purushas-chadidaivatam adhiyagya hamevatra dehe dehavritam varam. Based of the embodied being, the physical nature, which is constantly changing, is called Adhibhuta, the material manifestation. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods, like those of the sun and moon, is called Adhidaiva. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as the super soul in the heart of every embodied being, I am called Adhiyagya, the Lord of sacrifice. So, what is the meaning of Adhibhuta? The physical nature or this material world, which is constantly changing, the material manifestation. All the living entities are also coming into this Adhibhuta. The material manifestation, material nature, this world, not only this world, the entire universe is part of the material manifestation. Everything together is called Adhibhuta. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods like those of sun and moon, is called Adhidaiva. Sun, moon, Indra, Chandra, Varuna, Vayu, all these different demigods, they are coming under this Adhidaiva. So, collection of all the demigods. The Supreme Lord is the leader of all these demigods. And there is one universal form of the Supreme Lord. Just so yes, there is one universal form of the Supreme Lord, which is called Vishwarupa. In the 11th chapter of this Bhagavad Gita, we all know that at the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna displays this universal form to Arjuna. So in that universal form, Arjuna saw all the demigods are there. And Arjuna also saw the entire cosmic manifestation is inside that universal form. So these demigods, Indra, Chandra, Varuna, Vayu, they are different limbs of this universal form. So if we take all the demigods together, we can say that universal form is called Adhidaiva, which is the collection of all the demigods. And what is the meaning of Adhiyagya? Adhiyagya is the Supreme Lord himself, represented as the super soul in the heart of every embodied being. And that Supreme Lord is called Adhiyagya. And how Adhiyagya is living inside the body? As the super soul, Paramatma. That is the answer. In the heart of the every living entity. So Krishna answered 7 questions of Arjuna. And the 8th question is remaining, which is the most important question. These were different terminologies. Arjuna did not understand the meaning of different terminologies, and the Supreme Lord explained. But the 8th question is very, very important. The 8th question is, how can we remember Krishna at the time of death? Okay. So our whole life is an exam. Like our whole life is a preparation, and the death is the exam. Okay. If we can remember Krishna at the time of death, we will go to higher destination. We will go to Krishna's abode. If we remember something else, we have to glide down to lower species of life. And then again, it will take several years to come back to a human life. Millions of years it might take, because there are 8.4 million different species. If I become a very low species like insects, then it will take a lot of time to come back to this human form of life. Once we lose this human form of life, it's very difficult to come again. So therefore, Krishna will now explain how to remember Krishna at the time of death. It is said whatever bhajan we do, whatever devotional service we do, the ultimate test is death, whether we are able to remember Krishna at the time of death. Ante Narayana Smriti. Ante means at the end. If we can do Narayana Smriti, if we can do Krishna Smriti, or if we can do Vaishnav Smriti, then we will go back to Golak Vrindavan or Vaikuntha according to our Ishtadev. But if we cannot remember, again we have to come to this material world. Again this birth, old age, disease, death, Adi Atmik Klesh, Adi Bhautik Klesh, Adi Daivi Klesh. That means misery is due to your own body and mind. Misery is due to other living entities. Misery is due to the natural calamities. Birth, old age, disease, death. We have to again suffer from all these problems. So therefore, Antakale, Ante Narayana Smriti is the final test for every living entity. So before giving the answer, how to remember Krishna at the time of death? This is the question. Before answering the question, Krishna builds the context that why it is important to remember Krishna at the time of death. And in verse number 5 and 6, Krishna will explain. The verse number 5 explains why it is important to remember Krishna at the time of death. What will we gain by remembering Krishna at the time of death? The verse 6 explains what will go wrong if we do not remember Krishna at the time of death and we remember something else. Then 7 and 8 will answer this question, that how to remember Krishna at the time of death. So let's see. Verse number 5 says, Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yaprayati shamadbhavam yati nastatra shamshaya. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering me alone. It's not that I'm remembering Krishna and remembering 10 other things. No. Remembering me alone. Anything related to Krishna. You can remember once I went to Mayapur. It was very nice. You can remember that. That is also Krishna Smaran. You can remember about Srila Prabhupada and his teachings, gratefulness towards Srila Prabhupada. That is also Krishna Smaran. It's not that you have to only meditate on Krishna. Anything related to Krishna consciousness, if we can remember at the time of death, at once attains my nature. That means my dham or my abode, Golak Vrindavan. If we can remember Krishna or anything related to Krishna consciousness, they will attain Krishna's nature or Krishna's bhav or Krishna's abode. Of this, there is no doubt. This is an additional emphasis the Supreme Lord has given. Yati nasti atra samshaya. There is no doubt about this. So what is the benefit we are getting by remembering Krishna at the time of death? The benefit is undoubtedly we will attain Golak Vrindavan, Krishna's abode. Undoubtedly. There are many transcendentalists who are willing to get liberated and go to the abode of the Supreme Lord, and it is a very difficult process. Even after austerity for thousands of crores or millions of years, you cannot go to this Supreme abode of the Supreme Lord. But this is one process. At the time of death, if you can remember anything related to Krishna consciousness, undoubtedly you can go to that abode. So this is the benefit we are getting. Now, what will go wrong if we do not remember Krishna at the time of death? That is verse 6. Yam yam bhavismaran bhavam tyajattant kalevaram tam tamivaiti kvanteya sada tad bhava bhavitam. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So, if we do not remember Krishna, then we will remember something else. And there is only like two things, Krishna or Maya. If we are not remembering Krishna or anything related to Krishna, then surely we will remember anything related to Maya. Any object or any subject in this material world can be categorized either this is Krishna conscious or this is Maya conscious. So obviously, if we are not remembering anything related to Krishna consciousness, we will remember something related to Maya consciousness. And therefore, we will again come back to this world. Yam yam bhapi smaran bhavam tachatyante kalevaram tam tamiva iti kvanteya sadatad bhava bhavita. If you remember anything related to Krishna, you will go back to Krishna. If you remember anything related to Maya, you will go back to Maya. Again, this illusion, ignorance of this material world. Srila Prabhupada is telling the process of changing one's nature at the critical moment of death is here explained. So one changes one's nature. Suppose I have a human nature, but at the time of death, I am thinking that I could not eat meat sufficiently. I will become animal like tiger or lion. Okay, if I am envious, if my nature is envious, I will become a serpent. So, and what happens at the moment of death? The nature that you have cultivated throughout your life will be manifested. You will remember that only at the time of death. If you practice Krishna consciousness throughout your life, your nature will become divine, and you will be able to remember Krishna or Vaishnavas at the time of death. Whatever nature you cultivate throughout your life, at the time of death, you will remember that only, and you will attain that nature. So that is the principle. This is called law of last wish. In Bhagavad Gita, there are several laws. Like at the end of chapter 5, we have seen the peace formula. Bhuktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram shuhidam sarvabhutanam yatma mam shantim. So how can one attain peace? That formula is given in 5.29. And here also one principle is explained. It is called the law of last wish. Whatever nature I will think of at the time of death, that nature I will attain without fail. And Prabhupada gives an example here, one case study for this. Maharaj Bharat, who was a great personality, according to Maharaj Bharat's name, our land is named as Bharat. So Maharaj Bharat, although a great personality, thought of a deer at the end of his life. So in the next life, he was transferred into the body of a deer. So this is the case study. Although Bharat Maharaj was very, very exalted devotee, but he could not think of the Supreme Lord at the time of death due to some attachment towards a baby deer. So therefore, he got a body of the deer. Although as a deer, he remembered his past activities, but the deer was not a normal one. The deer used to sit with the sages and hear Harikatha. And the deer remembered all the past activities, that in the past life I was Bharat Maharaj and I developed an attachment towards a deer, and therefore at the time of death I remembered the deer and I became a deer. He had to accept the animal body. Of course, one's thoughts during the course of one life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. Very, very important statement. See, if we become materialistic throughout our life, we do not have time. This is the disease of modern man. I do not have any time. So if we say, I do not have time for Krishna, I do not have time for Krishna, all my time is given to Maya, then surely at the time of death, I will remember Maya. I cannot remember Krishna. So therefore, I will again come back. So we have to build our life in such a way so that we can remember Krishna. We have time for reading Gita, Bhagavatam. We have time for chanting the holy names of the Supreme Lord. We have time for a discussion with the devotees. We have time for going to different dham yatras. Everything is in our control. In whatever way we will mold our life, we have to go through that same life. So it is in our hand that whether I will make some slot for Krishna consciousness or not. Now, in the 7th and 8th verse, Krishna will give the answer. How to remember Krishna at the time of death. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanushmara yudhya cha mayyarpita mano buddhir mame vaishasya samshaya. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. So this is the way to remember Krishna at the time of death. Throughout our life, we should always think of Krishna, and also we should carry out our material duties. So we give excuse that I have different material duties. As a student, I have to study. As a businessman, I have to do business. As I have to do job. We give so many excuses. Arjuna also had the duty, material duty of fighting. But Krishna is not telling stop your duty and always remember me, always do meditation on me. Krishna is not telling that at all. Krishna is telling you should always think of me. At the same time, carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. So we have to practice this. This is little difficult, that how can we think of Krishna and also at the same time we should do our material duty. So we have to practice this. One may question, if we think of Krishna, we are not attentive in our prescribed duty. Suppose a student is studying. If the student is remembering Krishna, how can he study? So we have to understand it in this way, that every student who is studying has a motivation. Therefore, he is studying. Someone wants to become a great person, a professor, or something, some IS officer or something like that. They have a dream or aspiration or a motivation. Therefore, they are studying. So similarly, a devotee's aspiration is to please Krishna. That I am studying to please Krishna. I will study, I will take a designation, and with that designation, I will preach. I will study and I will earn money. With that money, I will support the mission of Krishna. So, this is the motivation of a devotee for study. Okay, so if you have that motivation, that is Krishna Smaran. A materialistic person is studying for money, a devotee is studying for Krishna. Every time, at the core of heart, he knows that I am studying for Krishna. It's not that during the study you have to also chant with your right hand and with your left hand you have to study, not like that. So at the core of heart, we should have that motivation. I am doing it for Krishna. Whenever I am slackened in my study, I should remind myself, no, it is my service to Krishna. I should do it carefully. So this is how we can do our prescribed duty along with Krishna Smaran, and that is required. That will lead us to the point where we can remember Krishna during death. If we live like this, with your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without any doubt. So this is the way of remembering Krishna at the time of death. So what is the way precisely? Throughout our life, we have to practice this, that how to do our material duties and also do Krishna Smaran. So in between our activities, we can chant one round. Whenever we get time, we should not waste and give it to Krishna. We should read one verse from Bhagavad Gita. There are pocket Bhagavad Gita books or pocket verses we can buy. So whenever we get some time, we should read. In our mobile also we can read from Vedas. So we should develop this culture of always chanting the holy names. Even if we do not have beads, we can chant the holy names in mind. Holy names, we can sing the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We sing so many different songs of this world, which is again full of Maya, which will make us Maya conscious and will force us to come back to this material world. Instead of singing those material songs, we can sing Hare Krishna or any Vaishnava bhajan. So we have to cultivate these practices. Now, of course, this is difficult and we have to practice. This is not easy to do material duties along with Krishna Smaran because we are habituated to this Maya consciousness. It will be little difficult to become Krishna conscious. Therefore, in the 8th verse, Krishna says it will take practice. Abhyasa yoga yuktena. Abhyas means practice. Abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasana gamina paramam purusham divyam yati parthanu chintayan. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. So, in the practice of meditation, you have to practice meditating on Krishna. Abhyasa yoga yuktena. It will be difficult, but again and again we will fail, but we have to try again. Sometimes, currently, suppose we are 100% Maya conscious. Try to become 90% Maya conscious and 10% Krishna conscious. Gradually try to become 80% Maya conscious, 20% Krishna conscious. So by practice, little by little, we will become fully Krishna conscious. It will take time. And if we can become fully Krishna conscious, then we can remember Krishna at the time of death, and then we can go to Krishna's abode. where there is no miseries, there is no birth, old age, disease, death, Adi Atmic Klesh, Adi Bhavati Klesh, Adi Daivi Klesh. Everything is beautiful in the spiritual world. And that is our original home. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada used to say again and again, go back home, back to Godhead. Our original home is the abode of the Supreme Lord. We say generally the Supreme Lord is our Father and we are His children. So generally, the children, they live in the same house as the Father, right? But for us, we are here in this material world and the Supreme Lord is there in the spiritual world. Why this is happening? That means something happened and we did something, we misbehaved with our Father and we came to this material world. So now we have to try to go back to our original home, because otherwise we will not be happy. That is our original home. And Krishna gives so many different instructions. Krishna is trying to help us in every possible way to guide us back home, back to Godhead. So we have to take that help from Krishna and we have to allow Krishna to help us by following the instruction of Krishna and the Vaishnavas. We can surely perfect ourselves and go back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So today we will not take any questions. I have to leave for one place. If you have any questions, please write to me. I will respond. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.